Hello, welcome to another lecture video for ACCO 30193, Strategic Tax Management. Now, for this video, we will be discussing your uh, first, what do you call this, decision making, where strategic tax management will be involved. And that is choosing an entity. Siyempre, start-up to. Ba? Maaaring ma-engage ka in an undertaking or in a consultancy um, agreement kung saan existing na yung business. So most probably, hindi mo na poproblemahin tong choosing an entity because the entity has been chosen bago ka pa pumasok sa eksena. Pero it is also highly possible that your services will be engaged for the purpose of choosing an entity. Ibig sabihin, you have to help your client. Nanghihingi, simula, ano pa lang, nagka-come up pa lang siya ng idea on what the business model will be. Pero tinatanong kanya ngayon, hinihingi niya yung tulong mo, hinihingi yung advice mo, ano po ang form of organization na aking gagamitin para sa business ko na ito at ano po ba ang mapapala ko, no? Bakit yan ang inyong ina-advise. Okay, so ito yung ating pag-uusapan, choosing an entity. Now, from the last lecture video na naka-upload, ang sabi natin doon, for a better appreciation of all the future topics, we will be adapting the savant approach. Again, the savant approach provides that we have to take into account the strategy of the business or the entity, and from that strategy, we'll follow your anticipation, value adding, um, tawag dito. Actually, yung value adding will be the result, negotiating and transforming. So, dapat ma-infuse natin yung savant approach na yan dito sa pinag-uusapan natin. Okay? So, let's start. So, here in the Philippines, meron tayong tatlong forms of business organization. Actually, marami pang iba yan. Pero, for starters, meron tayong tatlong maaaring pagpilian. So, we have sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. Ang pinakamadaling distinction dyan will be, syempre, yung number of participants, no? Number of participants involved in the entity. So for the proprietorship, you have one, no? Solo lang siya. Partnership, you have two or more. And then corporation, although medyo nag-ano na rin, no? Medyo nag-iba na rin yung landscape natin for this one because of the revision in our corporation code. So it used to be that the corporations can only be created if you have at least 5 subscribers. Pero under the revised corporation code, you have this concept of one-person corporation, OPC, where an individual may incorporate an entity. No? Although, syempre meron siyang distinction from the regular corporation or the multi-person corporation. But for our purposes here, we will be referring, pag sinabi natin corporation, we'll be referring to a multi-person corporation. Kapag kailangan pag-usapan yung one-person corporation, I have to state na one-person corporation siya. Okay, so for this sole proprietorship, this is the simplest and least formal type of business structure where a single individual has full control and authority over the business. The owner or proprietor owns all the assets of the company but is also solely responsible for all its liabilities. So pag sole proprietorship ka, as the term would imply, sole, ikaw lang mag-isa dyan. Kaluluwa, hindi ka kaluluwa. Sole, meaning single, no? Single proprietorship, mag-isa lang siya. Siyempre dahil mag-isa ka lang, yung capital mo, sarili mo lang din yon. Yung assets mo, sa'yo lang din yon. Pero yung obligations mo, sa'yo lang din yon. So parang solo-solo lahat. You have full control and authority over the business. And then we have a partnership. And so ito yung definition ng partnership under the civil code. So hindi ko alam kung nagtitake kayo ng ano ngayon or tapos niyo na to or nagtitake kayo ngayon ito. I don't know. So by the contract of partnership, two or more persons bind themselves to contribute money, property, or industry into a common fund with the intention of dividing the profits among themselves. So obviously, a partnership by the number of persons na involved compared doon sa sole proprietorship or single proprietorship, at least dalawa yung kailangan mo to form a partnership. Siyempre, obviously, you can create a partnership on your own. That would be crazy. No? That would not be illogical. No? Nakipag-partnership ka sa sarili mo. We'll be having problems kapag nag-start ka ng partnership on your own. Merong mutual contribution of money, property, and industry. Merong mutual participation in the profit. So, mutuality dito. Kumbaga, para kayong magtutulungan kayo, kaya partners eh. You trust each other, you contribute kasi merong money involved or property involved eh. Pag kinontribute niya sa partnership, hindi na siya sa'yo. It will now be owned by the partnership, which indirectly will be owned by all. Actually, sa partnership talaga yan. Pero yun nga, once na-contribute siya sa partnership, everyone can make use of that property that you contributed. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na ako'y nag-contribute ng kotse na to, ako lang gagamit. Ako'y nag-contribute ng upuan na yan, ako lang uupo. That's illogical and that is contrary to the nature of a partnership. Once you contributed a property into the partnership, then that property, property, even cash, will now be owned by the partnership and any of the partners can make use of that property or cash. As long as, syempre, it is pursuant to the business of the partnership. Hindi niya pwedeng kunin yung property for some other purpose. Gamitin niya for some other purpose. Syempre, kailangan in the interest of the partnership. Tapos, merong mutual participation in the profits. Kapag merong profits, hindi mo sasaluhin yon. Ano yan? Share kayo. Yun yung nature ng partnership eh. You must have that intention of dividing the profits among themselves, which is different sa sole proprietorship. Kapag merong kita yung sole proprietorship, the sole owner or the single proprietor will enjoy the entirety of the profits. Syempre, kabaliktaran naman ito, kapag may loss yung partnership, then lahat mag-share. No? Unless there are situations na merong mga partners na hindi nag-share in the losses, particularly the industrial partner. Yung mga nag-render na ng service nila, hindi nag-contribute or nag-share in the losses, partnership losses, unless they stipulate na siya ay mag-share pa rin. So, yung burden medyo gumagaang kasi naghahati-hati kayo dun sa loss. Unlike in a sole proprietorship, syempre, pag may loss yan, wala kang ka-share. Ikaw lang din yung magbe-bear ng loss na yon. Ikaw lang. Okay? So, it's a partnership, and then we have a corporation. So by definition of the revised corporation code, a corporation is an artificial being created by operation of law, having the rights of succession and the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incidental to its existence. So a corporation daw, although wala yung definition, wala yung term na artificial being doon sa partnership, it is a juridical entity. No? So just yung partnership at yung corporation, they will acquire a personality which is distinct and separate from the persons na nagko-consist sa kanila. Meaning, doon sa partnership, although hindi binanggit sa definition, pero sa subsequent article actually, 1768, nakalagay doon na yung partnership will acquire its personality which is distinct and separate from the partner. So ganun din yung corporation. Yun yung nature ng artificial being. Kapag sinabi natin artificial being, yung corporation will have its own personality, which is distinct and separate from the stockholders, from the shareholders. So, hindi naapektuhan yung buhay ng corporation kahit anong mangyari dun sa mga shareholders. So pwede silang yung mga shareholders, bibenta nila yung shares nila, transfer nila, donate nila, or even kahit mamatay yung shareholders, hindi naapektuhan yung buhay ng corporation kasi may sarili siyang buhay which is distinct and separate and independent from the shareholders. It is created by operation of law, meaning it is not created by law but by operation of law. So we have a law, which is now the revised corporation code. Um, if that law is implemented and there are individuals who are interested in putting up a corporation or business by way of a corporation, you have to incorporate under that law. So magda-draft ka ng articles of incorporation mo, yan, etc. Yung procedure, draft ka ng bylaws mo, mag-capitalize ka, etc. And then you submit your documents to the Securities and Exchange Commission. So pag sinabi ng SEC that you are compliant with the requirements of the law, then magkakaroon ka ng corporation. And that corporation was created by operation of law. No, kasi may requirements yung law, sinunod mo yung requirements ng law para magkaroon ka ng corporation. Okay? It has the right of succession kasi nga yung corporation ay merong sariling buhay. So meaning magpasa-pasa man yung yung life niya not affected, no? And then yung powers, attributes and properties ng isang corporation are only those which are expressly authorized by law. So dahil ang corporation ay juridical being or juridical person siya, tapos nakasalalay yung buhay niya essentially sa kung ano nakalagay sa batas. So kung ano lang yung nakalagay sa batas natin, yun lang din ang maaaring gawin ng mga corporation bilang tao sila, bilang juridical person sila. Kung ano lang yung inalaw ng batas, no, na powers ninyo or attributes ninyo or properties ninyo, yun lang ang maaaring yung gawin, no? Beyond that, no, you call that ultra vires act or what is incidental to its existence. Now, although it might not be as expressly authorized by law, if it is incidental to the existence of that corporation, it will still be allowed. No? It will still be allowed. As long as siguro it's not illegal, no, allowed yan. So yun yung definition. No? Definition pa lang naman yon, pero mas interested tayo in the sa kanila, no, on ating. So for our purposes, syempre, we have this tawag dito. We will present it in tabular form para mas madali siyang intindihin. As part of the savant, no, approach, syempre yung una mong i-consider dito para makapamili ka ng form of organization will be the strategy. The strategy of the individual or of the client, kumbaga. Yung ano na yan, yung company, yung ano yan, entity na yan, will have, again, we have discussed this before, meron siyang short-term and long-term goals. So, you have to consider if yung short-term, actually, yung short-term goal niya, kaya yang i-achieve nung kahit ano pa mang form of organization. It can be a sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation. Nagkakaroon ng mas malaking consideration with respect to the long-term goal. Yung kanyang long-term objective or long-term strategy, kumbaga. For example, gusto niyang eventually, you ask your client, what is your long-term goal? Ano ba yung purpose mo? Ano ba yung gusto mo talaga mangyari in the future? How do you see yourself 10 years from now? Tanungin mo siyang ganun. O pag sinabi niya, I see na yung business ko will be engaged in, let's say, exportation. Meron na siyang international operations. So, ngayon pa lang, you can advise na by that time, 10 years from now, baka mahirapan yung sole proprietorship na gawin yung mga expansion na yan. Hindi natin sinasabi na hindi niya kaya. We are not saying that. maaari na ang sole proprietorship, no? Kung ganong katindi yung kanyang capacity, it can possibly engage in exportation. Pero you have to give that advice na possibly we can start as a sole proprietorship and nothing prevents the client if necessary, no, if necessary, incorporate niya yung kanyang sole proprietorship. Or it is also possible na in the future maghanap siya ng kanyang partner, no, yung kanyang associate na pwede niyang to enter into a contract of partnership, no? Kasi if meron siyang expansion programs for example in mind, no, or magda-diversify siya ng kanyang goods and services, then no, kailangan niya ng capitalization. Isa sa mga weakness ng sole proprietorship is capitalization. No. Very limited ang capitalization ng sole proprietorship. Kung ano meron ka, yun lang ang ipaprovide mo. No, kung kailangan pa ng additional infusion ng capital or ng funds, you have to obtain a loan. But with respect sa mga bangko, sa point of view ng bangko, it is very unlikely na mag-extend sila ng loan sa isang sole proprietorship na gustong mag-engage in an international business or yung ganong large scale na business. Diba? Kasi they have to protect also their interest. Between a sole proprietorship and a corporation, yung mga banks would more likely lean towards extending a loan doon sa isang corporation. That is one among the considerations na dapat mong i-inform sa iyong client. Although, again, we are not foreclosing the fact that loans may be secured by sole proprietorship. Allowed naman yan. At wala namang pagbabawal. Wala rin namang, hindi naman siya impossible, kumbaga. Pero, no, you have to consider na hindi dahil possible siya, okay na. Hindi mo sabihin, tatanong lang niya sa'yo, kung sole proprietorship ako, makakautang ba ako? Di mo pwedeng sabihin na hindi, makakautang ka pa rin. Pero for what purpose? You have to consider that. Hindi ka pwedeng pumunta sa isang bangko saying na I need 100 million para i-financing itatayo kong building. No? You must back that up, no, with some assets, kumbaga. Hindi ka basta-basta lang, sige, we'll give you this 100 million. Well, again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be very difficult. It would be very difficult if you do that on your own. Kasi on the part of the bank, isipin ko ako yung bangko, and in the future, pautang ko siya ng 100 million, hindi siya makabayad, sino nga habulin ko? Siya rin. Meron pa ba akong ibang mahahabol? Wala na. Unlike in a partnership or a corporation, kung itong isang to hindi makabayad, meron pa ibang taong pwedeng habulin. In a corporation, hindi makabayad yung corporation. Again, may mga technicalities and legalities involved, but you can run after yung mga shareholders, for example. Kung magaling ka, kung magaling ka bilang bangko. In a partnership, ganun. Run after the partners. Go. But in a sole proprietorship, yung personal assets nung sole proprietorship, hanggang doon ka lang. Yun na rin kasi talaga yun. Wala naman na talagang ibang involved dyan. No? So, yun yung mga i-consider mo. No? Yun yung mga i-consider mo sa if you will talk about strategy. If you will talk about strategy, yun yung mga kailangan mong banggitin. Ano ba yung long-term goals mo? Again, with the short term, it's not really a problem. Kasi if ang tanong mo lang naman, ano ba bang short-term goals niyo? Gusto ko lang naman makabili ako ng produkto ko today for sale tomorrow. Whether you put up a sole proprietorship, partnership, or corporation, there is a likelihood na kaya mo siyang gawin. Siyempre, mas madali if corporation yan kasi malaki yung capitalization eh. But we don't say na sa sole proprietorship hindi kaya. Kung kailangan mo lang naman ng produktong bibilihin ngayon para may mabenta ka bukas, or kailangan ko lang naman ng pondo para mabayaran ko yung kuryente or for the month, yung susweldohin ng mga empleyado ko for the month, then hindi masyadong issue kung ano yung magiging form of organization. No? So you concentrate on the long-term goals, and then from there, no? Again, hindi dahil pinag-usapan niyo yung long-term goal, automatic corporation siya. Hindi ganoon. Ano pa ba yung long-term goal ninyo? No? Ano ba yung strategy ninyo para ma-achieve yung long-term goal na yan? Ano yung kailangan ninyo para makuha niyo yan? What are the anong capitalization involved? Okay, so that is the long-term goal. But right now, no, if we start as a sole proprietorship and no, grow your business, and then eventually no, you incorporate that business, it is possible that makuha nyo yung ma-achieve ninyo yung long-term goal na yan. But not necessarily by putting up a corporation ngayon. No? Ganon yung inyong strategy for that. Okay. What are the other factors that may affect your decision making bukod doon sa bagay na pinag-usapan natin? So we have here in tabulated form, no? This will form part of your advice, yung registration. A sole proprietorship, you have a simplified method of registering a sole proprietorship. Yung partnership and corporation, medyo technical and medyo extensive yung paperwork na kailangan mo. Sole proprietorship, you just fill up a form, no? You register your business name with the DTI, and then you check no, kung nagko-conflict na ba yung mga business name niyo dyan, etc. etc. So, medyo simple lang yung yung proseso na pagdadaanan mo to register a sole proprietorship. With partnership and corporation, yan, you have to draft the articles of co-partnership, the articles of incorporation. You have to prove na merong capitalization, no, merong magsa-certify yung partner, yung managing partner, yung treasurer ng corporation will have to certify na nabayaran tong amount na ito. Yan. They have to sign it up, ipirmahan nila yung mga papel na yan. They have to have it notarized, no? They have to submit it with the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then they have to wait because yung Securities and Exchange Commission, they evaluate each and every application for the formation of partnership and corporation. So medyo extensive yung ano na to, yung undertaking to put up a partnership or a corporation. It is so extensive sometimes no yung mga nagpo-plan na mag-put up ng corporation or even a partnership, they even engage the services of lawyers no? Or consultants. No? Pwede kayong mag-venture into this one. Putting up a corporation or a partnership. No? Kayo yung consultant, you will guide them in the registration of their business. Kapag sole proprietorship, actually, kaya siyang gawin ng individual. No? Medyo madali yung pag-intindi. Sometimes it is even translated to Filipino for a better understanding of that individual who is trying to register his or her business as a sole proprietorship. Okay? Then, we have the cost of registration. With sole proprietorship, very minimal yan. I think 300, 500. Siyempre may gastos ka for transportation. Pupunta ka sa munisipyo to register your business. Pero siyempre, kahit ano naman yan, kahit ano pa naman yung form of organization mo, you will incur that expense. But yung registration cost itself is very minimal with respect to sole proprietorship. Sa partnership and corporation, hindi siya ganon. Hindi siya fixed na 500 or 300 lang. Yung cost to register your partnership or corporation for that matter will be computed based on the capital contribution of the partners in case of partnership and the amount of authorized capital stock in case of a corporation. So merong method yung Securities and Exchange Commission in determining kung magkano yung babayaran mo. Yeah, so it's a certain percentage of your authorized capital stock or the capital contribution of the partner. So, syempre, the higher the capitalization, the higher the amount to be paid no, sa registration ng business mo. So, you have to consider that. Okay? Baka naman you are trying to register a corporation, with a capitalization of 1 billion, eh, hindi naman pala kaya ng mga shareholders na magbayad ng equivalent or corresponding uh, re, uh, registration fee for that corporation. Then, as part of the strategy again, yung control. Uh, ano po ba yung gusto niyong mangyari? Ano bang gusto mangyari ng client mo? Gusto niya ba na solo lang niya yung pag-control doon sa entity, o okay lang ba sa kanya na meron siyang kausap or kasama in the managing the affairs of the entity, or gusto niyo bang maupo in a body corporate like a board of directors or board of trustee? Depende yan. Ano yung kanilang uh, preference with respect to the control element. In a sole proprietorship, obviously, it is the sole owner who has complete control over the business decision. So lang mangingialam sa'yo. If you want to obtain a loan, no? Unless you have that dual personality. Kapag umaga, iba yung decision, pag gabi, iba. Pag gutom ka, iba. Pag busog ka, iba. Pag maganda ang tulog mo, iba. Pag kulang ka sa tulog, iba. So, depende yan. But usually, on paper, kung sino yung nakaregister as sole proprietor, siya lang nagde-decide for the uh, transactions ng business. Pag partnership naman, we have learned in law on partnership that ano ba natutunan natin doon? All partners are agents of the partnership unless you designate a managing partner. Kapag walang managing partner, lahat kayo will bind the partnership as long as you're doing it within the bounds of the law or of the articles of co-partnership. Siyempre, you cannot do anything illegal. Kapag may ginawa kang illegal, siyempre, that's your personal liability. Pero generally, no, as long as you're doing it by the act, no, pursuant to the business of the partnership, it will bind the partnership and it will bind, syempre, indirectly, the partners. Again, unless you appoint a managing partner, syempre, once you appoint the managing partner, it is the decision of the managing partner which will prevail, even if the other partners are not so amenable or agreeable to the decision of the managing partner. Since they appointed him or her as a managing partner, yun na yun, control niya na yung decision on the administration of the partnership. Siyempre, hindi pwede yung managing partner gumagawa ng acts of disposition or acts of ownership or acts of dominion. Hindi siya pwede mag-dispose ng assets ng partnership. Siyempre, without the consent of the other partners. But with respect to acts of administration, papaupahan ba natin itong property na ito? Bibilihin ba natin itong supplies na ito? Kanino tayo, saang lugar tayo magbebenta? Yung mga ganyan, acts of administration, it is well within the function of the managing partner, and even if, again, the other partners are not agreeable to that decision, magpe-prevail pa rin yung decision ng managing partner unless the managing partner, of course, is in bad faith. No? Baka naman nananadya na siya, wala namang basihan yung mga decision niya. Then, the other partners may act. No? They have their remedies under the law to question the decision of the managing partner. Okay? Medyo malalim na to. You should have learned that in your law on partnership and corporation. Business laws and regulation. Or much better, if you want, since sabay kayo, no, ng aking mga law subjects, you can find, you can locate yung ibang lecture videos ko on the law on partnership. Meron doon detailed discussion on how to manage the affairs of a partnership. Okay. Sa corporation naman, no, we appoint, no, meron kayong dinedelegate na board of directors. Diba? Sabi natin sa definition ng partners ng corporation, meron siyang powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. Yung powers na binabanggit doon ng corporation is exercised through a body corporate na tinatawag natin board of directors or board of trustees. So yung mga powers na yan na nakalagay sa corporation natin, power to sue, no, right to sue and be sued, no, power to enter into transactions, to enter into contracts, yan. Yung power ng corporation na yan, will have to be exercised through the board of directors or board of trustees, except for certain acts which require ratification by the shareholder. So there are certain acts na kailangang kasama yung shareholder sa decision making, like amendments of the articles of incorporation and bylaws, yung entering into merger and consolidation, yan, yung increasing in banded indebtedness, disposition of all or essentially all the properties of the corporation, yan, required na i-ratify yan ng shareholders. Hindi pwedeng yung board of directors or board of trustees lang ang magde-decide. But for the rest, no, wala nang masasabi yung shareholders. Kailangan lang nilang magtiwala doon sa board of directors. Pero yung board of directors naman, sila naman yung bumoboto dyan. No? Meron namang right to vote yung mga shareholders kung sino yung uupo as part of the board of directors or board of trustees. So if they no longer they are no longer agreeable with the decision of the board of directors, then they have to wait for the expiration of the term of the sitting board of directors and exercise their right as parang ano sila, mga botante. Dahil hindi ka na natutuwa doon sa ginagawa ng namumuno, galingan mo sa pagboto sa susunod na election. So applicable yan not only in a corporation but sa Pilipinas, no? Kayo, sa tingin ko naman kayo ay mga botante na kung hindi na kayo natutuwa sa mga nangyayari sa paligid natin. Please register, no, sa COMELEC. I don't know if open ang registration ngayon considering na meron na tayong pandemic na kinakaharap, health crisis, no? You have this right to vote, pinaglaban yan ng mga nauna sa atin, yung karapatan nating bumoto ng ating mga namumuno. So, you exercise that right. And then, you exercise it wisely, no? In good conscience. Para kayong mga shareholder sa isang korporasyon. No? Kung ikaw ay shareholder sa isang korporasyon, 5 taon na yung binoto mong miyembro ng board of directors never nag-declare ng dividend in your favor, samantalang ikaw naman yung nagpondo, ikaw naman yung nagpopondo, parang tax, di ba? Ikaw yung nagpopondo. Dito, bitang shareholder, ikaw yung source ng capital ng corporation. 5 taon na wala kang napapala, wala kang dividends na tatatanggap. Anong kailangan mong gawin? Next time na meron kang karapatang bumoto, wag mo na siyang iboto. Or kung sino man yung mga kahalintulad niyang, alam mong wala kang mapapala. Ang daming throwing of shade dito, pero let us not be political here. And we go to the next slide. Part of your strategy will be profits. Tatanungin mo yung client, ano po bang ninyo? Gusto ninyo? Profits-wise, ano po bang gusto niyo? Okay ba sa inyo? Kayo lang, sa inyo lang lahat ng profits niyo, or do you want it to be shared? No. Anong gusto niyo? How do you see yourself, no? As tawag dito, how do you see your proposed business, yung iniisip ninyong business sa paglago ng sarili ninyong value. Siyempre, again, value adding yung gusto natin mangyari dito. Tandaan po ninyo, if you choose na sole proprietorship, any profits nakikitain ninyo will be on your own. Automatic, it will add to your value as a person, ganyan, as a businessman. Pero pag may loss po kayo, yan, pagsabayin na natin yung discussion, since ganun din naman yung sagot, you have to bear all the loss. Kayo po lahat yan. Okay lang po ba sa inyo yun? Or if that's not okay with you, you can think of, you can consider entering into a contract of partnership. Kasi kapag ganyan, yung loss po ay mali-distribute among the partners, except for an industrial partner, unless they provide or they stipulate na yung industrial partner will also share dun sa losses. Pero with that, hindi nyo po sasalohin yung profits. Share po kayo sa profits. And wala pong pwedeng exclude sa profits. That's illegal under the civil code. Diba? Any stipulation excluding a partner from participating in the profits is void. Hindi po pwede yan. So pag partnership po, may profits, you have to distribute it amongst yourselves. So you might consider it. Or maaari pong corporation. So yung shareholders, no, kung ito po yung puput up yung business, kayo po yung shareholder, yung expectation ninyo to share from the profits ay kapag nag-declare po ng dividends yung corporation. So as long, kahit na kumikita yung corporation, kung hindi po siya na-declare ng dividends, wala pong mapapala yung mga shareholders. So kahit you have to wait for the dividend declaration and distribution. As a shareholder, dun lang po kayo, yun lang po yung tanging paraan para makashare kayo sa profits. Or if you want, you can wait for the dissolution of the liquidation of the partnership and wait for liquidating dividends. Medyo long term po yun. We don't have to wait for that. Pero in short term po, syempre, meron po kayo expectation to receive dividends. But that is, again, highly dependent on the decision of the board of directors to declare dividends. If they do not so declare dividends, then kahit pa sobrang taas na ng profits or retained earnings, no, alam natin na yun yung tawag dyan, yung accumulated retained earnings ng isang corporation, wala po kayong, tunganga lang po kayo mga shareholders. Okay. Tunganga lang po tayo dyan. So, mamili po tayo ng tamang board of directors para pag inawitan nyo sila ng dividends, they will declare dividends. And then you have losses. Dito po kayo, ligtas po kayo dito. Sa losses po, hindi po pag nalulugi ang corporation, hindi po nagsasuffer yung stockholders unless at least not indirectly. At least not indirectly. Shareholders do not suffer, at least not indirectly. At least not directly. Mali ako na nilagay dito. Indirectly, syempre magsasuffer siya. Eventually, kung talagang palugi ng palugi yung corporation, like wala nang point na magtuloy pa siya at mag-liquidate na siya, mawawalan talaga siya. Diba? Yung capital contribution, hindi niya na mababawi yun. Kasi totally nalugi na yung corporation. Exhausted lahat ng assets niya. So ano pang mapapala ng shareholder? Wala na. Write off niya na yung shares niya na yon. Pero in the regular course of the business of the corporation, kapag kapag nalulugi yung corporation, hindi niya sabihan yung mga shareholders niya, mag-contribute uli kayo kasi lugi na ako. Kasi or you have to shoulder portion of the loss. No, that cannot be done. You don't ask your shareholders na they shoulder portion of the losses. Hindi ganun. Kapag nag-i-incur ng loss ang corporation, it is the loss of the corporation and not the shareholders. Shareholders have limited liability with respect to corporations. Speaking of liability, ito na pala yun. Before we discuss yung assets and liabilities, ito nabanggit ko kanina, separate juridical personality. So yung sole proprietorship does not acquire its own juridical personality. So hindi siya nagkakaroon ng sarili niyang personalidad. So ibig sabihin, kung sino yung sole owner, siya na rin yung sole proprietorship. May mga epekto, syempre. Wala siyang sariling tax identification number. Yan, kung meron siyang empleyado na rin ng individual yon. Hindi iba yung employer niya, siya na rin yung employer. So magkakaroon ngayon ng additional liability on the part of the sole proprietor. So, siya na rin yung employer sa mata ng SS. So, meron siya ngayong obligation to withhold and remit yung mga SS contributions, PhilHealth contributions, and Pag-ibig contributions. Sa mata ng BIR, siya na rin yung withholding agent. And as a withholding agent, marami kang obligations under the tax code. You have the obligation to withhold and then to remit yung withholding tax on compensation, and you have to regularly file the withholding tax return, 1601C, and then the alpha list by the end of the year. So marami kang trabaho bilang sole proprietor. Ikaw din yung hindi siya nagkakaroon ng separate personality. Unlike a partnership and a corporation, yung partnership ay meron siyang sariling buhay, no, which is distinct and separate from the partners. Ganun din yung corporation. So, yung mga nabanggit ko kanina, kunyari si A at si B created AB partnership. Ang employer, kung meron silang mga empleyado, yung employer ay hindi si A, hindi si B, kundi yung AB partnership. So yung may obligasyon sa SS PhilHealth pag-ibig at sa BIR ay yung AB partnership, hindi si A, hindi si B, but the AB partnership. So kung sakaling merong may nakalusot na hindi nabayaran, ang hahabulin ng SS, ng PhilHealth, pag-ibig at ng BIR ay yung AB partnership, hindi si A, hindi si B. Unless they acted in bad faith or they acted negligently in managing the affairs of the partnership, in which case, sila yung habulin din. No? You can disregard yung personality ng AB partnership. But as a general rule, you don't do that. Yung obligation ng partnership is not the obligation of the partners. CBD Corporation. Since the corporation will acquire its own juridical personality, then trabaho ng corporation, yung trabaho niya, hindi trabaho ng shareholders, yung trabaho ng corporation. Magkaiba kasi sila. Okay? Having said that, you have here yung assets and liabilities. Since yung sole proprietorship ay walang separate juridical personality, the assets of the sole proprietorship are also the assets of the sole owner. So hindi siya magkahiwalay. So kung sakaling may maghahabol doon sa sole proprietorship, madadamay yung sariling assets nung sole proprietor, nung sole owner. Hindi niya pwedeng sabihin na hindi ko naman to kinontribute doon sa sole proprietorship. Hiwalay ito, personal ko to. Hindi, walang ganong dahilan kasi kung ano yung sole proprietorship, ikaw na rin yun. Hindi siya nag-iiba, wala siyang separate juridical personality. But with respect to the partnership, syempre yung partnership assets ay hiwalay sa personal assets ng mga partners. Meron siyang preference, kumbaga. Ang pinag-uusapan ay partnership liabilities. Syempre, ang mauunang pambayad dyan ay partnership assets. Kung merong personal liabilities yung partners, ang pambabayad dyan will be the personal assets of the partners. So, part siya. Again, since a corporation ay merong separate juridical personality, yung assets ng corporation ay hiwalay doon sa assets ng mga individual stockholders. So, you don't, hindi mo sila pagsasamahin. Huwag mong sabihin na, di ba stockholder ka doon, di ikaw may-ari ng building na yon. You can say that indirectly. Indirectly, yes. No? You can say that. No? Kasi it will flow through within. In case na mag-liquidate siya, indirectly, yes, pero hindi. No? Kasi on paper, yung building na yan is registered in the name of the corporation. So, wala. You can directly say na ako yung owner ng building na yan just because ako ay stockholder in that corporation. Ayan ay assets ng corporation. So, ganun din, no? Mabanggit ko lang, sa accounting syempre, kapag nagpe-prepare ka ng balance sheet, for example, or ng financial statements, buo na, ng sole proprietor, ng sole owner, ng individual na yan, kasama lahat nung nagagamit for that sole proprietorship. But with respect to the partnership, syempre ang ilalagay mo lang, ang ilista mo lang na assets doon, or even doon sa corporation, if you will be preparing or assisting in the preparation of the financial statements of a partnership or a corporation, you don't include yung mga personal assets nung partners or personal assets ng mga shareholders. Kasi sa kanila yon. If they are preparing their own financial statements, they have to include their yung mga properties nila doon. They can include yung interest nila in the partnership, lagay nila interest in X partnership or shares of stock in this corporation. Asset nila yun eh. Pero hindi nila pwede sabihin yung building dun sa corporation sa kanila. No, they can't do that. Pwede lang ilagay, I have 100 shares in ABC Corporation valued at this amount. O lagay mo yun sa sa assets mo. Assets mo yun. Okay? And then liability. So, a sole proprietorship, nabanggit na natin ito kanina. Siyempre, yung utang ng sole proprietorship ay utang mo na rin. So, in effect, yung utang mo sa mga suppliers mo, sa mga empleyado mo, kung sinasabi mo na wala nang pera tong business na to, Pero meron ka pang mga sariling pera, hahabulin yung sarili mong pera. Na mananagot yung sarili mong pera. Sa partnership naman, again, no? Although, pwedeng habulin yung personal assets ng mga partners to satisfy yung mga unpaid partnership obligations, bago gawin yon, dapat i-exhaust mo muna yung partnership act. Unahin mong gamiting pambayad yung partnership assets bago mo habulin yung personal assets ng mga partners. Ganun din sa corporation. Sa corporation naman, rather, uh, kung ano lang yung kinontribute mo as a stockholder, hanggang dun lang yung liability mo. It will not go beyond your personal assets. Okay? So, ang dami mong non-tax consideration which will affect your strategy. Not really you kasi consultant ka, or pwedeng ikaw din if you are planning to have your own business, pero if you have clients asking for advice sa'yo, ito yung mga non-tax considerations which will affect the strategy of the corporation, or of the business entity. In choosing whether they will put up the business as a sole proprietorship, a partnership, or a corporation. And then for the next slide, we have tax consideration. So medyo mahaba tong discussion dito. So to manage yung length ng ating videos, we will have to cut the discussion here dito sa tax considerations. But again, we will continue dun sa next lecture video. Just again, ang purpose ko lang naman is to manage the length of the videos kasi medyo mahirap mag-upload ng videos kapag mahaba siya. In the meantime, stop muna natin yung video dito and I will have to see you on the next lecture video. Thank you for listening and see you.